Welcome to another edition of Tony Talks. This week, as always, we'll be looking at the main business and economic news that are making the headlines this week. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Tony Ashton, Senior Wealth Manager here at Global Eye. Tony, what can you tell us about recent news? We know Amazon was in the news recently. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes, I mean, it all relates to a sweetheart deal that the EU, in particular Luxembourg, obviously an EU member, had with Amazon some years ago. Effectively, Amazon were paying very, very low rates of tax. Now, the European Union Commissioner says that's illegal and is demanding that Amazon pay that tax back. Now, of course, Amazon aren't happy about it, so they're looking at legal avenues to take that to appeal.
So, following on from that, Tony, similar problems for Apple?
Yes, Jamie. This time it involves Ireland and Apple. For years, Apple have been based, they've based their European operations in Ireland, effectively paid zero tax, or very, very little tax. For example, one of Apple's subsidiaries was paying 0.005% tax. That's £50 in every £1 million of profit. European Commission, not happy about that, says that they owe the EU 13 billion euros in back taxes and are actually pressing the Irish government to try and recover that money from Apple.
So, Tony, King Salman from Saudi has been on a state visit to Russia. What can we expect from that?
Yes, I mean, Jamie, it's a historic first visit, I think, for a Saudi monarch to Moscow, to Russia. And I think there's economics obviously in play. I think what they're hoping to do is extend that production cut deal between OPEC and non-OPEC. And that's been particularly effective on shoring up oil prices. And I think, we're seeing Brent crude stabilize in that $50 to $60 a barrel region. And they're hoping that the Russians will agree to keep that in force for longer, because obviously Saudi Arabia needs higher oil prices for its budget commitments and so on and so forth. And also we've got the Saudi Aramco IPO coming up later at some point in the future, and obviously the higher the oil price, the better the valuation.
So, Tony, we've also seen that at the moment markets are at all-time highs. There's a bit of nervousness around that with investors. What do you think investors should be doing at times like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, Jamie? I mean, we've got all this geopolitical stuff going on globally, in particular the situation, the spat between North Korea and the United States, and then we've had all the hurricanes, and we've got the situation in Puerto Rico, and so on and so forth. But yet the markets continue to go from strength to strength. And, clearly the question with investors is, how long can this go on for? So I think for your man in the street, your average investor, it's always best to have some sort of hedge against that. So not everything in equity, maybe some sort of DFM type solution, maybe some balance and more conservative approach. So, I think that the key takeaway really is, don't put your eggs all in one basket.
Moving to the UK, Tony, Theresa May was giving a speech in the party conference, and it was rather interesting, to say the least.
It was indeed. I mean, it was the final day of the Conservative Party conference. Traditionally, the leader's speech, this big rallying moment for the government, and for the Conservative Party, they're opposite the government. But the dream speech was a bit of a disaster. Poor old Prime Minister Theresa May, she's suffering from a cold, apparently, and she was coughing throughout the speech, which didn't go down very well. And then a prankster came on stage and handed her what we call a P45. Now, to those of us that are not from the UK, the P45 is the form that is given to you by the government when you lose your job. Not only that, but behind there was a conference slogan, and halfway through the proceedings, that some of the letters started to drop off. So in a way, it's sort of a symbolic of the kind of premiership that Prime Minister May has had. She called an election when she didn't need to. She's got a reduced majority. There is a feeling in the Conservative Party that the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson is after her job, and he's doing nothing really to dismiss that by making speeches at appropriate moments and so on and so forth. So the big question is, how long can she last? Now, why is is this important? It's really important because obviously in March 2019 the United Kingdom is meant to leave the European Union, and the negotiations that's currently taking place between Europe and the UK have to have seriousness and continuity. Now, if she doesn't last, then that could upset that apple cart. So it's not really looking that good for Britain and going forward in the negotiations regarding Brexit.